The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. And by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at CoolStuffInc.com. The Dice Tower, episode 605.
Games with a spark
of knowledge. Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Tom attends a Magic the Gathering event. Geoff is once again on a game show kick. We answer questions from the mailbag about changing rules to games, combating cardboard curling, and playing the same game over and over. And we ignite the spark of knowledge with our top 10 games that inspired us to learn more about a subject. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Thor to my Rocket Raccoon, Tom Vassell.
I don't want to be Thor.
Oh, come on, they're a good buddy. They're a good team, you know? Just seemed like a nice pairing.
I want to be Captain America.
Nope, sorry, Captain America was taken. You can be Thor.
I think we've done that one already, probably.
I think we've done lots of matchups of various Avengers.
Can I be like the Rocket Raccoon to your Groot? That seems like it makes more sense.
Well, we specifically did that one before. So again, I think this is the only pairing available. I
feel like that's a lie. That's the only pairing available. Do you know how many characters are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? No.
There's several. At least 4.
At least 4. Well, actually, I'll be talking about this later on. Not about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but something adjacent to it. And no, we're not going to talk about the movies or Game of Thrones or any of that stuff. This is a board game podcast. And normally,
right, we're going to stay on topic, as always.
Normally I might go off topic, but the fact is we don't want people to stop listening to the podcast.
Right, no.
There's a lot of people
spoilers.
threatening to do that. I feel like by the time this comes out, though, 2 weekends have gone by, but still.
It's true, but I think in social media, I saw more people threatening what would happen if you spoil things than I saw any hint of spoilers.
Yes, but I was in the parking lot and some kid came and shouted a spoiler.
Oh, no.
No. I had already seen the movie.
Yeah, but still, can you imagine you've managed to avoid spoilers the whole time? You finally arrive at the movie theater and somebody walking out of the theater having just seen it ruins something for you? I would be so upset.
Yeah. We kind of just plugged our ears up and went in. I got off social media like that day and the day before just so I wouldn't accidentally see anything. My one daughter was spoiled on a plot point. She said she read a comment in a YouTube video that wasn't even anything to do with this.
Yes, my wife did the same thing. She was on an author forum for a book author, and somebody made a comment that turns out was related to the film she didn't know, and the comment spoiled things. So, the danger is certainly there.
Well, nothing here. Not right. Even a sly comments on our behalf. They're not there.
We're going to stick to it.
We are. Let's jump into some gaming. But before we do that, I want to mention that we are in convention season. So here is our quick catch-up of where we are convention-wise. The next convention, which is only a few weeks away, is the UK Games Expo.
Woo.
Z Garcia and myself will be there. We'll be, instead of having a booth in the gaming hall, we're going to have a game table in the gaming area, and you can come and play games with us at various times. We'll try to get a schedule of sorts up as soon as we can. Then after that, the next con is Origins, and Z Garcia and Roy Canada will be there. They're going to be wandering around. You'll have to find them. It's like Waldo.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get them some dice that they have to hand out if you find them. But I better check with them first.
They're going to get mobbed. Seriously. If they have prizes for finding them like human piñatas, that is not.
What if I didn't tell them? I was like, Z, I just need you to carry this bag of dice around. At some point, you'll know the reason.
You'll know what to do.
So then, directly after Origins, or as Origins goes on, I'll be heading off to ConCon in China.
ConCon? Oh.
Yes, as in KHAN, ConCon.
Really? ConCon.
Look, I didn't name it.
Just saying. I mean,
I don't
I
know
got
what you're
excited
saying.
for a second. Well, I mean, Con is my home convention. It's just the wrong time of year.
Sure, I see now why you might be confused, but I'm going to go with the civilization that's been around for 2,000 years, has the rights to the name first.
Fine.
6,000 years, whatever. So after Con, I will be then headed towards, what's after that? Oh, Dice Tower Con. And you know what, folks? This one you can come to. This one you can sign up for. This one, there are still tickets at dicetowercon.com. And then Gen Con, which is still a bit away, but I believe we're really close to Gen Con event registration, and we have a live show there, so you can sign up for that.
Oh, boy.
Oh, and there's still Dice Tower Cruise, which is sold out, but there's a waiting list that I spy with my little eye you might be able to get still on the ship for. And Dice Tower Retreat in September. So lots of things coming out this year, but con season's upon us, which means it's time to talk about bigger games than normal, which means I'm only going to talk about one. And that one is Lord of the Rings Journeys in the Middle-earth.
Okay.
Now, this game is fantastic, but it is essentially, not quite, but it feels like a 2.0 version of Mansions of Madness 2.0.
2.0.
Well, I think I'm the only person in the world who calls it 2.0, unless I've got other people to copy me. It was never actually called that. I think it was just Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, maybe.
Right.
I just like saying the 2.0 for whatever reason.
Okay.
But Lord of the Rings, Journeys in the Middle-earth, you pick one of the characters from Lord of the Rings, and I think it's before Lord of the Rings, and you're kind of wandering around as a group and trying to do some sort of mission. You 100% need an app to play this game. Whether it's on your phone or iPad or on your computer, you can get it through Steam. It's a free app. And I don't know how many missions there are, but there's a lot. And the missions change, and if you fail or succeed a mission, it will change the mission or missions that you do afterwards. Random things show up in these missions, and so you're kind of just on your turn you get a couple actions, and so that you might be moving around the board, you might be exploring tokens, you might be fighting. Unlike Mansions of Madness, in this game, when you see a bad guy, it's okay to fight them. You might beat them, but still, more often than not, it's best to run because there's one of you and 800 orcs. And even though you're Legolas, still.
Yep.
It has a very unique card management system where you will be using cards and playing cards, flipping cards from a deck to see if you succeed or not. But the cards also have a chance to be put in front of you where you can use them for their special powers. And so you're building this custom deck that it's initially made up of cards for your character, cards for the class that you've decided to do, and other things will, get in there. I give some starting cards and things like that. And it's so story-driven. It's so neat. I know some people don't like app-driven games, but I really like this one because I don't have to think about anything. So let's say I attack an orc, and I have a weapon, and it does 3 damage with Pierce. What does Pierce do? I don't care. I click 3 damage, and I click the button that says Pierce on the app, and it handles it for me. I love that sort of thing. I don't have to wonder how many hit points this field orc has. It shows me on the screen. And of course, random events will happen, or actually planned events might happen, and things like we killed one person, we thought, and they stood back up and fought us again. And that sort of thing is I don't know, I'm really, really enjoying the immersion that I have into this. I'm enjoying the strong storyline. It's just fantastic. So I'm not going to jump into this whole should we have an app type thing. I think it's great. It's not in every game. It's in this one. The negatives of this, it's a campaign game, so you're not playing just random missions. You're going to go start through. You can save your game, of course. And the missions aren't too long. I'd say they're 45 minutes to an hour each. But still, I love it. That's Lord of the Rings Journeys in the Middle-earth.
So that deck that you mentioned, the results deck, that replaces the dice that would be in Mansions of Madness?
Yes, there's no dice in this game, which, I kind of do like dice, but this card deck, it reminds me almost a little bit of Gloomhaven.
I actually just played Mansions of Madness a couple weeks ago, and we got to talking about Lord of the Rings, and I know I've said here on the show that if only there were another theme with this system, the app-based, story-driven system, I would be all over it. So this is of high interest for me. But the fact, again, that it's a campaign game, I don't know if I have room for another campaign game on my shelf.
Yeah, that's kind of a tough thing to crack there. But at the same time, I guess you don't need to treat it as a campaign game. What I mean is you can just say, okay, it's our turn to play the game. Here's the characters. Here's where they're at. Just play them.
Yeah. Okay. One game that I've been really dying to play ever since you talked about it here on the show, Tom, is New Frontiers. This is the Race for the Galaxy board game by Tom Lehman. It uses a lot of art assets from Race for the Galaxy and Roll for the Galaxy. The artists
I'm not sure there's anything original in the game, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure the graphic design is different, but certainly the iconic assets of the galactic trendsetters, it's the same illustration that you saw in Race for the Galaxy. So in New Frontiers, you have this big old player mat with your starting world on it, and you have sort of giant array of all of these possible developments that you have set up at the beginning. Instead of drawing things from a deck, you have it all laid out for you. And when you do an explore action, you pull like 7 worlds from a bag and lay them all out, and you get first choice if you chose that action, but then everybody else gets to choose one world as well. There's a lot more things presented to you, and you get to choose from all of those options rather than having to rely on the luck of the draw like you would in Race for the Galaxy. Also, there's no set order for the different phases in this game. So you've got the settle action and the develop action. Settling lets you create or colonize a world. Develop lets you buy some sort of technology that's going to help you. But in Roll for the Galaxy and Race for the Galaxy, this is done in a certain order. Here, when it's your turn, you get to choose one of the actions that have not yet been chosen this round. You will get a special reward for doing so, but also everyone else may follow along and do that action as well. But that'll change each round what order these things get triggered in, which is interesting. It's also very, very, very close to Puerto Rico. I mean, almost as if there was just a space theme laid over Puerto Rico. There's some small differences. And while I'm not sure if I prefer this to Race for the Galaxy or Roll for the Galaxy, I think I still like Roll the best. Whether I think Race, I kind of like how you have a limited number of choices. Say you've got your starting hand. This is what you have to deal with. You make your choices based on that, as opposed to having everything available to you in New Frontiers. However, once you are familiar with the whole system, having everything available to you in New Frontiers is great because you can strategize a lot more. You can say, all right, so here's my starting world. I can plan, I want that development, and I want that one, and then I want that one, and then I want that one. And if you manage to get to them before your opponents do, because they are limited, you can do so. And that can be your building strategy. Or every time a particular type of world shows up in that array of 7, that's the one I want. And you have a better chance of getting those things than you would in, say, Race for the Galaxy, trying to sift through the deck. I will say, though, that I don't think I need to play Puerto Rico again. We joke that games replace other games all the time. This one feels like a straight-up replacement. I just take that off the shelf and put in New Frontiers. And I would prefer to play this at any point to Puerto Rico. I enjoyed it, but the things that I enjoyed about it are very much the same things that I enjoy about Race for the Galaxy and Roll for the Galaxy. I don't think you need to have all 3 of them. So right now I own Race and Roll. I will enjoy playing New Frontiers when my friend brings it to Game Group, but I'm probably not going to seek out my own copy. Still enjoyed it, though. New Frontiers. Okay,
so you said you like this better than Puerto Rico?
I do.
Here's why I think Puerto Rico might be the better game, because it's much faster and streamlined. New Frontiers is great until the part where you pull the tiles out of the bag and are drafting them.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the game slows down quite a bit as the first person looks at all the tiles, decides which one they want, and passes them to the next person.
Well,
in Puerto Rico, the buildings are all out there already. You can see them all.
You don't lay them on the table and let everyone look at them at once?
Well, sure, but they're two-sided, so you still have to pick them up and look at them.
Well, they're the same on both sides.
Wait, I'm mixing up my games now.
You are. That's Roll for the Galaxy.
Yes, I get that. Sure, you can place them at the table if everyone can see them, but there's still text and stuff on them.
Yeah.
And I found that the first person, and I'm not going to get too excited about it because you might pick the one I want.
It's true, but if you're going second, then you have a first and second choice.
I don't get me wrong. I like the game a lot. I think New Frontiers is fantastic. I think it's a little bit. There might be too much production in it, by which I mean, I know that they were trying to cut costs somehow, but it's weird to me that they have a board for every home planet.
Yeah, we were discussing that. It seems like they could have, because there's the home planet, and then there's this big old grid below it where you put your developments and slot them in, kind of like the island board for Puerto Rico. And they could have separated those and then just, when expansions come out, add just the new starting world as opposed to having to print the entire player board again when you have a new starting world. It's a very large game, very big box, takes up a lot of table space. Real estate is very high with this one.
But they wrote an article on the internet that explained why they didn't do that. I forget what the reasoning was, but it had something to do with cost.
Oh, interesting.
New Frontiers, Race for the Galaxy, Roll for the Galaxy. I need them ranked.
Then I'm going to go... I think I have to go with Roll, Race, New Frontiers. I still like all three, though.
Yeah, I agree that I like Roll and Race better than New Frontiers, but I don't know the order. It switches every time I play one or the other.
Yeah. The one thing I do that sort of pushes Race over, in addition to the sort of limited decision space, I know they tried to streamline the graphic design, because that's always one of the big complaints about Race for the Galaxy. But the way that the cards are laid out in Race for the Galaxy, it's all like the number phases, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so you can lay out in your tableau all of your cards, and when a particular phase triggers, you can just look across all of your cards and look at, if we're in phase 2, you can say 2, and it has all of the abilities that trigger during phase 2, just in a row. They're all in the same place on the card, so you can just look at all of your cards and know what gets triggered. Whereas with New Frontiers, these tiles are all over the place. All of your worlds are in sort of an arc on your player board, and all of your developments are in the grid, and you have to look at every single tile all over your play space to see what has an ability that triggers at that phase, which is a little more confusing and fiddly than I would have liked.
All right, the next game I want to talk about is Silver and Gold, which is shockingly a roll and write game.
Ah. Why is that shocking?
Well, because that's normally Suzanne's thing.
Oh.
But I will. This is by Phil Walker Harding, and he tends to make very streamlined, very good games. So this game essentially is kind of like a Tetris style game where you have these treasure maps. That's where the silver and gold comes in. It has nothing to do with an animated special. Each player has a couple pirate islands that are just different various grids of squares. And you'll flip over a Tetris shape, and then everyone needs to draw that Tetris shape on your board, on one of your islands, if you can fit it on. If not, you just fill in one square. And then the things that you fill in might get you points. You might get to draw an extra square if you cover an X, or if you get coins, you'll score some points on the board. And once you completely fill it in, you draw another card and you keep going. And you're trying to fill in as many cards as possible. Each card will be worth a certain number of points. The more squares it has, the more points it's worth. That's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple game, but I really enjoy it. I like the Tetris-y thing. It works really well, and I'm starting to think that Phil Walker Harding is one of the best game designers ever. He knows how to take a simple concept and make it a fantastic game.
Cool.
So that's Silver and Gold. I do not know for sure who's bringing it to America, but I think it might be an animal that's black and white and eats bamboo shoots.
Okay.
Also mixed with a raptor.
Yes. My other game to talk about today is called Fire Tower. This is one that my wife picked up. In our early days of hobby gaming, my wife was the one making most of the purchases. And she hasn't really done that lately, but some coworkers of hers recommended this, and she said, "This sounds great. Let's get it." And bought it, had it shipped over. This is a game from Samuel Bryant and Gwen Ruel, illustrations by Kevin Ruel, and the publisher is Runaway Parade Games. The Board Game Geek actually lists them as self-published. So this is their one product. It was a Kickstarter. This is a fire tower, like a sort of a forest fire observation tower. You've got a giant grid on the board with towers in the four corners.
Tower defense.
It is tower defense.
Oh, I was just kidding.
No, there is a fire in the center of the board, and it's going to spread every turn, and you are trying to burn down your opponent's towers. Last tower standing wins. Now, I don't know why you're doing this.
Wait a minute. So, just to clarify, you're in a tower and I'm in another tower, and we're both trying to put out the fire. But if you die before me, I chuckle to myself knowing I've won.
Yes. So, even though we're in a fire observation tower, I don't think our goal is to fight the fire. It's to protect our own tower, but I am literally trying to destroy yours.
Oh, that makes more sense. I was just doing that the other day.
Oh, good. Yes. And I also don't know why we have the ability to control the fire and the wind, but we do. There are the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, on the board. At the beginning of your turn, the wind is blowing in one of these directions. You have to extend the fire one space in the cardinal direction that the wind is blowing. Now, there's lots of grid spaces, and so that could be anywhere in the fire. There's 4 spaces that are the eternal flame, the starting spaces for the fire, or any other fire piece on the board that's already out there. And so you just have to extend one of them north if the wind is blowing north. So that could be way on the other side of the board. As long as you can go north, sure, goes north. Then you get to play one of your cards, and some of the cards change the wind direction. And you may have a card that says west, but maybe you don't want the wind to go west. You can play that card and then roll a wind die, which will then change the direction, possibly not going west. But you have wind cards that can change wind direction. You have water cards that can put out the fire and take it out. You have like a pattern, so it might be a parachute jumper that puts water out in a circle shape or a U shape or a square. You can put out fire breaks, which will stop the flow of the fire in certain patterns, but there's rules about how many of those you can put out. You can't place adjacent to other fire breaks, stuff like that. And then there's also fire cards, which have specific patterns in which the fire will move. So you can maybe get 3 fire spaces in a row as long as it's adjacent to the existing fire already. Or maybe even an explosion that can cause something to spread out in a huge pattern and leaving a fire break in the center. Anyway, you play one of these cards and then draw back to your hand limit. You are out if the corner space of the board, the top of your tower, is on fire. As soon as something touches that, you're out of the game, and you hand your cards to the player that took you out. Everybody else's hand size increases, so it sort of escalates slightly. You also have a bucket that you can use in an emergency situation. It's the only way to get fire out of your tower. There's like 9 spaces that are your tower. You can use your bucket and take things out, but then that's it for your bucket. That's all you had. And then you have like an emergency, they call it reckless abandon, where you can discard 3 equal cards, 3 fire breaks or 3 water cards, and just place 2 fire pieces as sort of a last-ditch effort to try and take out your opponent. So, as an abstract and as a chaos take that game, it was fun. I enjoyed it. When there were multiple players in the game, it was cool to try and, get the fire or the wind to blow in the direction you want, away from you, toward your opponents, work around the fire breaks that they brought out there, have some sort of shifting alliances as you sort of team up on one person, and then the wind shifts, and now they're teaming up on you. When it came down to only 2 players, though, it wasn't quite as enjoyable because it was basically who is not going to have the defense card that they need to keep their tower safe, who's going to get that stabby fire card to make that final push into the tower before the other player. It didn't feel as much strategy and a lot more luck of the draw at that point. I don't understand the theme at all. Are we wizards? Are we interns that just got bored? I really don't know.
I think you're wizards.
I think we have to be. Like, why are we controlling the fire? And why are we not helping each other? Anyway, it was enjoyable. It's not one that I'm going to ask to play very often, but I think I'll have fun playing with the family and doing some Take That chaos with Fire Tower.
I'm starting to think that you may possibly be an evil person. Because that's pretty evil and wicked.
It is. I mean, at least we're only hurting each other. It's not like we're, destroying civilization. It's just the Fire Tower. I'd like to play this game with Rich Sommer, since he was in that video game about fire towers called Firewatch, which is excellent, and you should play it. But this is very different from that.
All right. Well, that's the games we've been playing lately. I got something to talk about, but before that, let's jump over to Geoff.
3, 2, 1, go. It's time for Game Tech with Geoff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
My non-gaming friends all know about my gaming, well, let's call them proclivities. So frequently when they hear a news story about games or something's going on in the gaming world, they will let me know about it. So I guess I should not be surprised that lately my inbox is filling up with questions from friends and family about one Mr. James Holzhauer. Now, if you're not familiar with the name, James Holzhauer has been tearing it up on the TV game show Jeopardy! As of me recording this, he has won 18 games in a row. And while that's well short of the record of 74 consecutive wins held by Ken Jennings, he has been impressing people with the amount of money he wins. Whereas Jennings won an average of $34,000 per game, Holzhauer has been winning an average of $74,000, more than double. And he now holds a slew of records, including most money won in a single game at $110,000, shattering the old record of $77,000. Now, Holzhauer has made the leap into the national consciousness, and my always helpful friends and family keep asking me if I know about this guy who is, quote, reinventing the game. But is he? And if so, what is he reinventing? Now, in analyzing a game, we look at the decision points, where the player interacts with the system. In Jeopardy, there are 4: selecting a clue, buzzing in, answering the question, and wagering. So, let's first look at answering the question. Now, Jeopardy contestants go through a lot of tests before getting onto the show, so it's not surprising that most of them know the answers to most of the questions, typically around 80%. Holzhauer is slightly above average, but not significantly enough to count for the difference, since before you can even answer the question, you need to pass another skill test, buzzing in. Now, an interesting facet of designing game shows is that they are best if the audience can play along. Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Family Feud, all the great game shows give the viewers a moment to see what answer they would give or choice they would make. Now, originally, Jeopardy contestants could buzz in whenever they wanted. But while it made the game fast-paced and exciting, it wasn't a satisfying viewing experience, as a home viewer didn't even have time to try to come up with an answer. So Jeopardy added a rule that you couldn't buzz in until Alex finished reading the question. More specifically, there is someone backstage listening to Alex read the question, and when he gets to the end, they push a button that lights a series of lights on the clue board, which are unseen to the audience. At that point, they can buzz in. If they push the buzzer too early, they are locked out from having it register again for a quarter of a second. Enough time for someone with better timing to slip in. Now, this is an area where Holzhauer excels. Prior to going on the show, he practiced several techniques for buzzing in quickly. Different positions to hold his arms, ways to keep the button partially depressed so he could get a quick reaction in. In addition, being a returning champion helps a player get used to the rhythm of when to buzz in. Many of the top contestants have mastered this skill, though. There was even a book about it written years ago, well before Holzhauer's appearance. It was an invention of his, but he is certainly very good at it. Now, the third element is selecting the clues. Now, for years, contestants would start from the top of a column with the low money questions and then move down the columns one box at a time. Holzhauer instead goes hunting in the most expensive clues, trying to find the valuable daily doubles. Years of data collection shows which squares are most likely to house a daily double, and Holzhauer relentlessly goes for those first. Gaining a daily double is incredibly valuable for several reasons. First, you're the only one able to answer, so you don't have to worry about the buzzer. Second, you can wager anything and make the question worth far more than a normal one. And finally, you deny its use to an opponent as a way to catch up to you if you're ahead. But again, this strategy, while not incredibly common, was used a fair amount on Jeopardy over the years. Holzhauer did not invent this. So our last element is the wager that you make for the Daily Double and Final Jeopardy. And this is where Holzhauer is doing something different. He is wagering way, way more than most people do. He bet over $60,000 on just one Final Jeopardy question. And you know what? If you have an 80 to 90% chance of getting a question right, you should bet everything you have, at least according to the math. But most people don't. They are held back by the psychological effect called loss aversion. Losing money feels worse than gaining it feels good. I've talked a lot about it here on Game Tech, and this is an incredibly clear example of it in action. Now, professional poker players learn that even small edges over time will add up, but they can't be afraid of losing. If you know you have more than a 50% chance of winning, that's when you want to get your money into the pot. And sometimes you'll lose, but overall you'll win more. Over time, professional gamblers are able to overcome their inherent loss aversion. So it's no surprise that Holzhauer is just that, a professional gambler. In addition to all the other elements, knowing the answers and having great reaction times on the buzzer, he also is fearless about getting in as much money as possible when the odds are in his favor. And yeah, eventually it will bite him and his luck will run out, but it's an exciting streak to watch. This is Geoff Engelstein with Game Tech.
Okay, so recently I decided to go to a Magic the Gathering pre-release event.
Oh, okay.
Well, the War of the Spark is the newest Magic the Gathering set. When you hear this, it is now released. It's out in stores. I don't play Magic the Gathering other than sort of a casual thing, but I was very curious about this particular set because every pack you bought got a Planeswalker in. So Planeswalkers are pretty powerful. Well, they're Planeswalkers. They're like the main magicians, I guess, of the Magic the Gathering universe.
Right.
Or sorcerers or whatever. They're Planeswalkers. And so normally they're very rare and difficult to get. But in this particular set, there's one in every pack. So one of my gaming friends, Kenneth and Roy Cannaday, my video editor, said, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we went and did this?
Wouldn't it be funny? Okay.
Well, like fun/funny. And I was like, maybe, I was going to play this, but I don't know what pre-release even means.
Okay.
I'm assuming it comes out before the release. That's my, understanding. So that's what it is.
Yep.
So it's a week before the release of Magic the Gathering set. They have a pre-release thing. So what you do is we went to the store. We went, the manager told me that like Sunday at 6:00 p.m. was the least attended time. All right, great. So we went to that time. And it cost $30 to play.
Okay.
But you get a box, and in this box you get 6 booster packs. So booster packs normally cost $2.50 each, so that's $15 right there.
All right.
And you also got a play mat and a couple rare promo cards and some tokens and dice and things like that. I feel like you got $30 worth of stuff. And if you're lucky, more. And if you're less lucky, less because of the whole collectible card game thing.
Right.
So we got there, and I said, how does this work? And essentially, they give you this little box. And so we got there at 6:00. At 6:00 exactly, they gave us a box, and you had 1 hour to build a deck. A 40-card deck. And you use any of the cards you get in your set. You can't trade with anyone else. You got to use your cards. But they'll give you all the lands that you need.
Okay.
So I was like, great. What do I do? Because me and Roy and Kenneth were the only three people in the store, I believe, who were board gamers, right? Everyone else was Magic the Gathering, and I'm listening. And if I could be slightly egotistical, if I walk into a room of board gamers, I never sit around and wonder, will I fit in? I feel like I know board games.
Yeah.
You say, what about this game? I gotcha. I know about that game. If nothing else, I've heard of the game. But here I felt like the noobiest of noobs. And so I'm like, is this card good? To the guy next to me, he's like, oh, yeah, well, great card. Cool. Because I'm like afraid, like, I don't know what this special ability does. And so anyhow, I mean, I know enough of Magic, so I sat there and built a deck. And they give you a little pamphlet that says, you should put 17 lands in your deck and this many creatures and this many spells. And I'm like, oh, and you're supposed to build a 40-card deck. And I was like, I built my deck and it was like 50 cards. And I said, well,
got to take some
to the guys around me, I said, do people play with more than 40 cards? And they're like, on rare occasion, if they have a very special reason for doing so and aren't idiots, yes. I mean, they said it slightly differently than that, but that was definitely the impression I got. I was like, oh, all right, fine, I'll go to 40. So I got my deck down to 40, and then I found out that we're going to play 4 games. Now, I did not realize that each game was an hour time frame.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know this was no 5-hour event.
Wow.
So I said, do you have to stay for the whole thing? They're like, no, some people don't even play. They just come get their pack and they leave. I was like, oh, okay, great. So we'll stay for a couple of the games. So the very first game, everything is randomly drawn, and happily, me and Roy got paired up against each other.
Oh, there you go.
Kenneth says there was shenanigans going on in there, but it's Wizards of the Coast software, and they don't know who anyone is. And so this was good because we were like, yes, one of us is going home with a win.
Yep.
That person was not myself. So we built these decks. We had fun playing, and of course, we put our decks. And we're like, how many cards do you draw? Is it 7? I think it's 7, but I'm not sure. Because if you play board games, every game draws a different number of cards.
Right.
So, you're used to that sort of thing. Magic the Gathering players look at us like, 7. Yes, we knew that. So we draw the cards and stuff. And I will say this. Everyone there was very polite. There was a few times where it was like one point we finished our each game is a best 2 of 3.
Okay.
So we finished our first game and Roy won, and then he asked that we're like, well, who goes first in the second game? And they the guy next to us kind of rolled his eyes and he was like, the loser chooses, of course. Oh, we knew that. But I mean, that was the only. There was one other time Roy was playing somebody else, and he beat the guy, and then he finished, and some guy standing around and said, "Well, actually, if this, then this had happened, you should have been able to do this." And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to play that guy." But it was fun. So me and Roy, Roy beat me the first game. I beat him the second. Then we only had 8 minutes to finish the third game. Because somebody plays slowly, but I'm not going to say who because they edit this podcast for video format. So we got that done, and if you're not finished with your game, then you a third game, then you play 5 more rounds. There's something to that effect. Okay. It's very strict rules.
Wow.
So then you switch to the next table. So I went and played some guy who was extremely friendly and very polite and mutilated me. And he kept saying, "Oh man, my deck's not doing as well as it could do." I was like, "Oh, shut up! I'm down to 2 life here." I did. I'm down to 3 life in our second game, but he still won. Mm-hmm. So that was a very quick ordeal. He beat me 2 straight games. So I was walking around watching Kenneth and Roy play. Some guy walked up and said, "You want to play a random match?" It's like, I guess. So I played him. Then he beat me. So I was feeling pretty good overall.
All right.
And then I decided to check out, and so did Roy and Kenneth, because we needed to go and watch some big battle thing that was on TV.
Sure.
But anyhow, if you lose one game, or if you lose all your games or win only one game, you get a free pack of cards. Or you can get store credit instead too.
Okay.
So if you win 2 games, you get 4 packs of cards. So Roy had won 2 games. He beat me, and he beat the next opponent.
Nice.
So even though he didn't play his last 2 games, he got basically $10 of credit.
Cool.
So that was pretty neat. And we got to keep all our stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a kind of fun experience. Will I do it again? Yeah, maybe in like 5 years. It's not. I don't know. That environment isn't necessarily me. I could see myself really getting into it when I was younger. Mm-hmm. I kind of like the board gaming aspect better. This whole meta gaming around everything. Everyone's opening cards going, what? Ooh, wow. And they're using words like aggro and control. And I know what these words mean, folks, but they use a lot of words, and I'm not really quite sure. And I'm not sure that a new player might not be a little thrown off by the environment. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stay here. And, I don't care if everyone mocks me. I don't care if I lose in 5 turns. I'm going to finish this.
Right.
And it was fun, right? It was fun as I got destroyed. I don't mind losing and all, but I don't know if I'm like smart enough to be in that environment in that one game. I'd rather be a little good at hundreds of games than really good at one.
And I think the pre-release event is not really for new players. They probably have other things for getting new folks into the game to begin with.
Sure, you can actually they said a pre-release is the easiest thing to get into. You can go in and have they'll teach you how to play beforehand, but no one takes a pre-release tournament that seriously.
I guess that's true.
So the guys aren't in there for blood and fighting and everything, and that's fine. And they really weren't. Again, I want to be very clear. Everyone treated us very nicely. But still, watching other people play on a different level was fascinating. And this happened to me 2 times in the same weekend. Because it was Magic the Gathering, and the day before, my kids went to see the movie of the year. And while they were watching it, I'd already watched it twice. So I went and hung out in Barnes & Nobles because books. So I was reading some books and things, and I went over to the, whatever they call their Starbucks ripoff.
Yeah, the cafe.
I went over to the cafe, and there were some people playing chess there. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And there was a game of chess going on with chess clock. I think it was speed chess because they were playing pretty fast. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as someone lost, they moved and someone else sat down. And I watched these people play, and I was like, wow, that's cool. And I'm not going over there to get in line because these people are at a level far beyond me. So yeah, I felt that I'm out of my depth in chess and in Magic the Gathering.
Yep, got to stay away from those lifestyle games.
I'm going to be good at Fire Tower.
Are they wizards? I still don't get it.
Anyway, that's my Magic the Gathering pre-release experience. It was pretty fun. So let's jump to questions.
Tom.
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 Hi, Tom.
How many meeples tall are you?
How many game pieces have you broken with that gavel you use?
If you could eat at a restaurant based on any game, what would it be?
And now, the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe, answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the game library?
Darren will kick us off today. Out of curiosity, what is your take on modifying a board game's rules to fix it? Have you ever come across a game that you originally disliked, but then either made or played with altered rules that made you like the game? I try to avoid this as much as possible, Tom. It really bothers me to change to do the house rules. I don't know. It's just my personality.
I played games where I changed minor rules, like in Carcassonne and drawing the tile at the end of your turn rather than beginning. You know, minor things.
Yeah.
But if I don't like a game and someone says, but if you modify it, it's better, I'm like, too late. I'm already moving on to another game. I really want the original rules to be as best as they can be.
Yeah, I mean, one recent example, we've talked about Comanauts on the show and how there's like a respawn rule that can sort of get you into a loop. I have considered removing that possibility and not letting characters respawn once you've wiped them off the board. But I think that's not a game that I disliked to begin with. It's just something that I think could move it along a little faster.
Sure. All right, Steven says, what do you feel about expansions that are essentially replace huge swaths of the base game, rather than adding to the aspect they're providing more stuff for? Such as the Networks expansion replaces the deck of shows, or the upcoming Euphoria expansion will replace the recruit deck and the markets. So basically, you get this. I think Viticulture did that too, right? They had some new visitor cards, and they basically replace the old visitor cards rather than adding to them.
Right.
I've seen games do this too. They'll say, take this out and add this in instead.
Mm-hmm. Like Pandemics, I get, what was it, In the Lab, that sort of changed the process for curing diseases and added this whole like cube shuffling, petri dish moving around thing. That there was a whole extra layer.
Yeah, but that felt more like an addition. It didn't feel like there was a subtraction to the base game.
Okay. Then I'm trying to think of another example then.
Usually when I think about this, it's just them taking a deck of cards out and replacing it with an alternate deck of cards. I actually don't prefer these because when I get new cards, I'm always like, ooh, how does that mix with this? Oh, wait, we took the first deck out. So there's no cool combos in between. I get it. It's not a huge deal. I'm kind of neutral on the subject. I wish, like, when I got the new viticulture stuff, I was like, ooh, I would like to, add these to my current visitors. Oh, the replacements?
Right.
Well, that's not as cool.
Yeah,
for me.
you're only supposed to play with the new set. Unless you play the advanced Uber variant where you do just mix them up, because you could do that. Brian has two friends who he enjoys gaming with. They enjoy playing medium-weight Euro games. Often, at times when they enjoy a game they play, they want to play a second time immediately after. Brian says, I like to play games, of course, but have a large collection of games so I can have a variety of options. I usually prefer to play a game once a year and then move on to another. When I open a new game, I play it 2 to 4 times before retiring it for a year or so. Should I be less regimented and play a game twice in a row? All of the games we play are mine. They don't have their own game collection.
So you can do what you want, apparently.
Well, I mean, I get it. I get that. I understand the feeling that I would rather, since there's lots of games to play, I would rather play 2 different games that I enjoy than the same game twice in a row, at least. But I also get the understanding that, somebody finds a game that they enjoyed, it's already set up. It usually isn't that big a deal to just reset everything and go again. That's faster. You're playing more quickly. It is kind of fun as well because you don't have to go through rules again. You can just say, all right, now we know how this goes. I think it depends on the length of the game, too. If it was a quick one, I mean, we used to do this with Dominion. Just, let's set it up. New cards. Let's go. Here we go. And you're playing again. But I also understand the need for variety. I think you should alternate. If go with your friend's wishes one week and then the next week, all right, we're going to play 2 games tonight. 2 games this time.
Yeah, I get both sides of the thing. And sometimes I played a game that I love so much that I was like, I don't care what the other people say. I'm playing this again. It's amazing.
Yep.
Because sometimes the game is that good. So if they think that, yeah, but if you're trying to play a lot of games, I get it. I was a little confused where he said he played a game once a year, but then played it 2 to 4 times. I think he means he plays it one time, and over that period of time, he's playing it 2 to 4 times.
I think, actually, he said he's, like, once it's in his collection and in rotation, he'll play it once a year. But when it's brand new, he'll play it 2 to 4 times, and then it goes into the regular once-a-year rotation.
Got it. Well, that's going to open a can of worms. A lot of people will disagree.
This actually just happened this past week with New Frontiers. 2 of the players at the table wanted to just set it up, but it was my pick next. So I'm like, nope, we're playing Fire Tower. And that's how that worked out.
You should have played New Frontiers again.
It would have been quicker, I guess.
All right, Chris has a few questions for us.
Wow.
He says, when you are playing a game for the first time, have you ever got a bad taste of the game because you were playing with the incorrect player count?
Yes.
I'm assuming incorrect by, like, obvious. You shouldn't have played this game with 6, even though it says 6 on the box.
Yes.
So on and so forth. And some games don't scale well. Some games don't scale well when they're small. Some games don't scale well when they're bad. But he wants to know if we played a game the first time and thought it could have left a better taste in my mouth with more or less players. For me, yes. But I usually almost always recognize the fact that we played with the wrong player count. I'll be like, well, that would have been a whole lot better with fewer players.
Yes, absolutely. And almost always the extremes are where the issue is. If it's a 2 to 5 player game, playing for the first time with 5 players is usually the wrong choice. And often just going with 2 can be either a different game or not as interactive as it would with 3 or 4. But sometimes, when it's the brand new game at the table and you've got 5 players that want to play it, that's what you're going to play. You can't be like, I think it's better with 4. I'm just, I know maybe, you're here, but, you should go play something else. Although now that I think about it, I kind of do that with Merchant of Venus. So, try and avoid the extremes if you can.
Oh, no kidding. I'll just say, hey, I'm not going to play this game with that number of players. Let's play something else.
It's hard to recognize that on a first play, though.
If it's a Euro game, play with 1 less than what it says. Unless it's 4-player, usually then you don't got it. Yeah. Even then, sometimes 3's faster. But if it says to 5, I always say, is it better with 4?
That's a dangerous 5th player right there.
Chris also says, have you ever had a random urge to reread a rulebook for a game you know really well, either to brush up on the rules or you just want to see if you kind of made a mistake? And if after knowing what the rules state, would you re-implementate that rule into future games? Or would you continue playing no thanks as you always have?
It's funny. You're the one that keeps bringing this up as far as no thanks is concerned.
You were going to, so I'm just preemptively saying it.
I would, if I find that I've been playing something incorrectly, I will play it that way the next time I play it. I want to play by the correct rules. I will find it fascinating that I've been playing a game for a certain amount of time incorrectly. It's like, whoa, I wonder how it plays like that. That's kind of neat. I feel like we should recognize how that would change things, but it will often get me excited to play with the correct rule. I wonder how that works.
Sure, but if I play with the correct rule and I don't like it, I'll go back.
Which goes back to our earlier question about fixing a game unconsciously.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think how often this happens. Do I reread rule books? I usually read rule books while I'm playing a game. I always like looking at them and thinking about it.
Yeah,
Chris's final...
No, I often have to go back and reread it if it's been a while since I played, and I will have to refresh myself. And then that is when I'll often detect something that was played incorrectly or something that I don't remember being that way. I might not even remember if we played it correctly or not.
Chris's final question is, have you ever culled a game for your collection because you thought another game had replaced it or you have no desire to play it again, only to later regret your decision? Maybe an expansion comes out or... whatever the reason is, and he says this has happened to him, he wants to know whether it's happened to us.
I mean, there are times that I think, I'd be interested in playing that game. Oh, yeah, I don't have that anymore. But it's a fleeting feeling because there's tons of other things to play. And so there was some reason why I got rid of it. It wasn't seeing playtime. It was replaced by something, but still, I must have enjoyed that other game. So I'll just play that other one. And then maybe play the first game at somebody else's house.
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've gotten rid of a game that I regretted it. But most of the time I don't, and I'm not even going to really push this too much because I don't want people to be hoarders because we're afraid that they might get rid of a game. For every game that I got rid of, and I wished I hadn't gotten rid of it, there have been many, many, many others who I haven't given a second thought to.
And, if you think about it, when you do get rid of a game, as long as you're not throwing it away, you're getting it to someone who is going to enjoy it as well. So I sort of see it as passing on the joy. If it's a game that I would enjoy playing later on, that other person's enjoying playing it as well. Scott and Caden are a father-son duo. And they listen to the show whenever they have a long drive. And when they heard we needed questions, Scott has one and Caden has two. First, Caden wants to know how many games we have and what's our favorite game to play with our kids. I think, if I should have gone to the collection number, but I think I'm somewhere around 450 to 500 as far as the games go, which is still way too many. I'm still having trouble letting go sometimes. I look at a game on the shelf and say, I still think the kids are going to like that, and I just haven't had a chance to play it with them. So I'm going to keep it here because they might like it. And, I should really just start letting go of some of those. But as far as playing, one of my favorites to play with the kids right now is Clank. I really like seeing them rush through the dungeon or the spaceship and put their deck together and just have fun with that whole process. And I like it when they find an adult, quote-unquote adult game that they click with and enjoy. And I can see the wheels turning on that one. So that's the joy I get right now, is seeing them interact with the big games.
Okay, so right now, I believe in my personal collection, I have about 30 games.
What? Because all of it's gone into the con library.
Sure, the Dice Tower library is growing by leaps and bounds. So according to the interwebs, let's see, the last login here was, today. Okay, so this is accurate as of today, although there is 50 more games heading this way, but there's 693. But that's 693 amazing games. Ugh, so good.
This is the library that's gone on the cruise and to the retreat. I've unpacked this library.
Yeah. It's a good library. I'm so happy with it. And it's going to get bigger. It's going to get bigger as time goes by. We'll hit 1,000 easily before the end of the year.
Wow.
And it's going to grow at exponential rate, because not only am I adding all the new good games to it, but I'm also going back and hunting down old games. I was at a flea market a couple weeks ago and was able to add quite a few older classic games, including like Kingmaker and Kremlin to it, and some of the other Euro games from the 90s and stuff. Just an eye out for everything.
Wow.
The problem is, as I hunt games down for this, I have to double check to make sure I'm not buying something that already exists.
So Scott, his question was, it's about game boards, player boards, and larger cardboard pieces. He's noticed that some of these have started to curl upwards, started to bow and bend. This leads to pieces and boards spinning when bumped. They will even curl upwards if you flip a double-sided board over to the other side. This is normally not a big deal, but in games like Forum Trajanum, Viticulture, and Brewcrafters, there is often a lot of pieces on the boards, and a bump could mess everything up. What do you guys do to combat cardboard curling?
So I looked this up on the internet.
Yeah?
Because I don't know. Most of mine, I just bend it. But basically, there's lots of little tips you can find on the internet, but they mostly say, try not to let this happen.
Yep. A lot of it has to do with moisture. So keeping your games in a drier environment, if you need a dehumidifier or something in your play space or storage space. As far as correcting it, that can get, I don't have any tips, but I have heard methods of, either gently moisturizing the boards and then flattening them somehow. I don't have any experience actually trying it, though, and that would terrify me in actually trying to do this. So I just live with it.
I don't like bent cardboard at all, so I'll do my best to bend it back, but yeah. If people have good tips, this is a great thing in the forums.
Yeah. Especially if it's worked. I know all of my knowledge is, I hear that this is something that could work, but I have not actually, involves stacking them all together and then flattening them with a big heavy book or brick or something and leaving them for a week and then hopefully coming back and they're not with brick dust on them.
Well, here is the thing, folks. I believe I've answered every question now, or at least the ones that we can answer on air. I've answered every one from that we've gotten in the year 2019. We're out of questions. We need them badly. Send them to questions@dicetower.com. Send us lots of questions, good questions, unique questions, funny questions, but we won't spoil the end of Endgame. You can't ask us that. All right. Now let's go to a top 10. A new one.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
Okay, so the top 10 games that got us interested in a topic. So this was very wide open, and I can see we went down two different tacks with this. Because, no, for me, when I looked at this, there was basically two things. One is arts and literature, and the other is history.
Okay, and I was thinking history and maybe some science topics.
But either way, for me, these games were, I found about the subject through the game, and then went and learned more about it in other ways.
This was actually a very difficult topic for me because a lot of my favorite games are far more abstract or imaginary and not based in sort of real concepts. And so it was hard for me to put together a list of ones that did inspire me to seek out outside knowledge about a real world thing.
Maybe. Well, let's see. I mean, this is the kind of one, like, I don't think we have any crossover on this, do we?
No, we don't. We have some close. There is one almost crossover, but
that is true. And there's several on your list that I considered putting on the list, but I'll explain why I didn't. But I mean, I can just basically say the answer is going to be the same for almost all of them. I already was interested in that topic before the game.
There we go.
So, all right, let's get started.
Number 10.
My number 10 is on the list because I wanted to learn more because the game does a terrible job explaining it, and that is the worst case scenario survival game. This is a terrible trivia game in which you're given some sort of terrible life-threatening situation. What do you do in this situation? It's a multiple choice thing. And then there's no explanation as to why answer B is answer B. So this made me want to go read the book, the worst case scenario survival guide, so that I could actually learn why those are the answers to the questions. But that's why it's my number 10, the worst case scenario survival game.
I don't even know how to respond to that. All right.
But it did inspire me to learn more.
I think people are going to like your list better than mine. All right, my number 10 is Marvel Contest of Champions Battle Realm. This has nothing to do with Marvel. I've done Marvel my whole life. But Marvel Contest of Champions Battle Realm, I thought, what a long, convoluted name. It's about the Marvel heroes fighting in some battle realm where they all fight each other. Big deal. Then I went, and there's a comic about it too. I was like, oh, sure, okay, fine. They must have made this game based on this comic. No, both the game and the comic come from a video game. That's basically Contest of Champions. And it's on the iPad, and I play it every day. And have played it every day for like a year now. And it's because of this board game. This board game made me go and hunt down this video game.
Huh.
So that's Marvel Contest of Champions Battle Realm.
I see.
Number 9.
My number 9 is Morels, a two-player
Something
game
Eric
about
lacks.
hunting. Hunting for mushrooms in the forest. And, growing up, I was a fan of Babar. And that story told me you do not eat mushrooms in the forest.
That's right. I remember that.
And so I never even considered that someone might willingly wander through a forest and collect mushrooms. I mean, you need the proper knowledge to do so. And it sort of got me interested, like, wait, you could actually do that? And I was interested in learning more. I have not gained the courage to actually try it. But it is interesting, and it remains interesting, which is why Morels is my number 9.
Not me. I just go to the grocery store and buy the mushrooms there. I love mushrooms, but...
That's the safe place to do it.
Babar has taught me well.
Yes.
I need to find these books for my kids. I love these books. My number 9 is Pillars of the Earth. This is a game it's a fantastic game, and I talked about it and said I loved it, and every time I talked about it, people said... It's based on a book that you should read. And I said, no, I don't really care.
Yeah. I don't read.
But someone sent me the book in the mail. Well, if you do that, the chance of me reading the book is like 98%.
Right, because it's right there.
Well, I just like reading, so I read it. And it's okay. Now, I thoroughly read the book. I read it twice, just in case, because I usually read books twice. But I don't really love it, but I would never have read it because, I would not have also kept going on with the book. Like, I was like, this book's not really going anywhere for me, but this game is based on this book. It's going to get good. They're going to build a cathedral. So that's Pillars of the Earth. I would never have read the book if it hadn't been for the board game.
Number 8.
Number 8 is a little card game called Ergo. It is all about logic. In fact, you play one of the variables in these logical statements that you are constructing over the course of the game. And the goal is to prove that you exist and disprove the other players at the table. It is a brain-burny game. It is a convoluted game sometimes, but it uses all these logical symbols and parentheses, and you keep adding to these statements and making things true or not true, if, then, and stuff like that. It's almost a different language entirely, and had me going, how does this all work? And wanting to learn more about how these logical constructions are put together. And that's why Ergo is my number 8.
My number 8 is Dune, the board game, because after playing it, I went and read Dune, the book. This is truth. I'm not going to be ashamed of this, and maybe people were expecting a different kind of list. I'm just saying, because of the game, I went and found the book. And
I know I was expecting a different kind of list, but please.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. I'm going to argue that I went and actually did the stuff here, and I think you just thought about it.
I did, yes.
Okay,
this was a difficult list, okay?
I don't think you're on any kind of moral or morals high ground here, okay?
The morals are on, they're on the low ground. They're very low. They're not high.
So Dune, It's actually an excellent book. I don't recommend the sequels or much of anything in the whole universe, but the game is great. And they're actually reprinting the game, but it was because of the game that I went and found the books. So my number 8, Dune.
Number 7.
Hey, you know what? It's cool? Birds.
Yes.
My number 7 is Wingspan. And in addition to the lovely illustrations that are full of that are in Wingspan, there's also all the stats about the different birds and the sizes and the type of nests that they have, and whether they will eat other birds, whether they're hunters or not, and all these facts that go into the game and actually have gameplay reasons for them being there. It makes me interested in being observant in the world around me, seeing all those birds, and what the fact that there's all these different types of nests. I never even thought about how I just think that there's one type of nest, it's a bowl shape, but that there's other types. I guess I knew that there were holes in trees. I knew about that. I didn't know about the others though. Anyway, I'm not quite at the gone birding stage of
You're not even
to
close
learn
to
more
that.
about birds.
You're just pretending now.
I'm not pretending. I'm interested. That was where this was. Games that has me interested in a topic. And I'd like to learn more about the birds in Wingspan, my number 7.
All right. My number 7, we're still in literature, is Arkham Horror. I had never even heard of Cthulhu until I played Arkham Horror. Maybe I'm out of it, but like my whole childhood, I never heard the word Cthulhu. I never heard Cthulhu when I was in college until... No, I don't think I ever ran across it. Was it even a thing, Eric, when we were kids?
I don't think I knew about Cthulhu till I started playing games.
Yeah. So Arkham Horror, maybe read about. I was like, ooh, this is based on books. I will read them all. So I read lots of Lovecraft, and I hated all of it. But I like some of the stuff that's based on Lovecraft. I don't actually like Lovecraft himself. He's dark, and I don't understand what's going on half the time. But I would not have done so if it hadn't been for Arkham Horror.
Number 6.
Number 6 is a historical game, 1775 Rebellion. Now, American history is not my forte. And in my mind, incorrectly, I just assume that there's this 1776 Declaration of Independence, and then the war begins. And 1775 teaches me that there was more to that whole story and conflicts before you got to 1776. I also enjoy all the shifting alliances or the different teaming up of the factions that are part of this game and have me wanting to learn more about the extended history of the American Revolution. My number 6, 1775 Rebellion.
Lest you think I'm a cretin, my number 6, 1960, The Making of the President. I actually, I couldn't pick 1775 because I read so much about the Revolutionary War when I was a kid and a teenager, so I already knew a lot about it. But I didn't read anything about 1960. I guess it was too close. I don't know what it was. So when we played this game and they said the election was so close, I was like, it was? Well, I need to go read more about this. And I did. And so I learned a lot from this game. It pointed me towards more books and things. So that's 1960, The Making of the President.
That's interesting because more recent history is the stuff I'm more interested in, whereas the older revolutionary period was not my main interest.
Number 5.
Number 5 is another scientific game. Mermies is all about this species of ants. You have a little colony and you're training ants to do different jobs. And what really fascinated me was this concept of pheromone trails. You have these tracks that you put out on the board that make it easier for your ants to move around the board and get to different spaces. And how the ants use this to travel around is something that I wanted to study and learn more about. So Mermies trained me to like ants. Number 5.
All right. My number 5 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the new board game from, well, not new, I guess it's older now, from IDW. Now, I grew up knowing about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I always thought they were stupid. Cowabunga, whatever. What'd they say? Pizza, Cowabunga. They just, I don't know. I thought they were dumb.
Totally tubular. Radical.
And the movies I thought were dumb. Then I played this game, and in the game there was a comic book, and I was like, this is very different than the cartoon was.
Oh, yes.
And then IDW sent me some more comics, and I read them, and they're amazing. It's so good. It's amazingly cool. I really like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics. They're definitely darker than the stupid 90s cartoon was. And even the more modern cartoons are a little bit better than the older cartoons was. I don't know. I kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles now, and it's because of this game.
Number 4.
Number 4 is one of the historical variants for Pandemic. This is Rising Tide. It's all about the Netherlands and trying to get the water out and build 4 hydro... how exactly do you 4 structures that will battle the rising tides, battle the water that is above the land in the Netherlands, various dams and pumps and systems. And there's some historical information in the rulebook of Rising Tide, but wanting to know, I never even considered that there was this process of having to build all of these and make the land safe for habitation. It's a fascinating topic and a feat of engineering that I wanted to learn more about. Pandemic, Rising Tide, my number 4.
My number 4 is The Reckoners. The Reckoners is, it's a superhero, an anti-superhero thing. Basically, the superheroes in this universe are all bad. And so when I heard about this game, actually, the knowledge that this game existed made me go out and read the books. I don't know why I was looking for a book to read, and I was like, what? I'll go read these Reckoner books, and they were fantastic. Some of the best books I've ever read. Love them. Like the game a lot, too. But thanks to this, I found the books, The Reckoners.
Interesting. My son has yet to... He got the game for Christmas and hasn't played it yet, and it sort of bums me out that he's not at all interested in it. I need to open it for him and this is our family game night pick, kid. We're going to play this.
Number 3.
Number 3 goes back to my 1775 pick, Founding Fathers. This is all about the drafting of the Constitution and the various articles and how each of those articles could sway toward small states or large states or federalist or anti-federalist leanings, and how it's sort of this alternate history of how if you had gone the other direction, what that article would look like in the Constitution, and had me wanting to learn more about how this whole document was put together. Plus, there's all sorts of information about the various personalities that were the drafters of this document. It's fascinating and a part of history that I was not very familiar with and wanted to learn more. Founding Fathers, my number 3.
This is another one I would have picked, but man, I read so many books about that before the game. Number 3 for me is a twofer. This War of Mine. So this War of Mine is a very, very depressing game in which you are just trying to survive as ordinary people in a war-torn zone. And you're not going to survive, just as a spoiler. So I was like, man, what? And then I found out it was based on a video game. So I went and played that video game and got even more depressed. But then I read some literature based on this and just some facts. And I went and started reading some more on the internet and different places about common people during warfare, as opposed to, the quote-unquote glorious soldiering and things that go on. And this game kind of opened my eyes to that a little bit. So this War of Mine is my number 3.
Number 2.
My number 2 is a war game called Dos Demaio. It's a 2-player game that is set in Madrid. Spanish residents are fighting Napoleon's French forces, and I knew nothing about this conflict, this historical conflict. That the game is set that if the French achieve victory conditions over 10 rounds, then they will win. But if the Spanish player can prevent them from reaching those conditions, that is victory, even though eventually they would be overwhelmed by the French forces, which I had never played a game that had that sort of victory condition, and had me wanting to learn more about this conflict that I knew nothing about. And this style of game as well, where you're playing history, and if you manage to sway it enough, that is victory one way or the other. My number 2, Dos Demaio.
That's a really good choice. I think I could easily see why that one's there. I didn't know anything about that time frame, that part of history, until I played that game. That could have made my list. My number 2, believe it or not, is a Star Wars collectible card game.
Okay.
Shockingly, I never saw Star Wars until I was in college.
Really?
Yeah, really. It's one of those things, very long story. Doesn't matter. And I was prompted to do so because I played the Star Wars collectible card game. I was also prompted to read the books about Star Wars and the comics, and I became a huge Star Wars fan until the last 5 years when Marvel's cinematic universe drove all Star Wars out of my head because it's so much better. But this card game, I read all the little details on all the different background characters. I went and read books about these background characters. Oh, I got so invested in the Star Wars universe, and it's definitely because of this game, Star Wars collectible card game.
Interesting. Very neat.
And finally, number 1.
My number 1 is Freedom, the Underground Railroad. Now, what I understand, you're trying to rescue slaves and get them over the border into Canada, and that all makes sense, but the part that I was not as familiar with was the raising support, the economic factors that are part of this time period, and all of the other stuff you have to do in addition to just the saving of these cubes and the slaves that you're trying to rescue. There's a teaching guide that goes with this game that Academy Games puts out, and I think that's just another testament to how complicated and intricate this area of history is, and how this game can be used to learn more. It's fascinating subject. And my number 1, Freedom, the Underground Railroad.
Again, another good choice that I had already read a whole lot about. So,
yeah.
My number 1, though, along the same lines, is 1989. Now, this is actually only 30 years ago, right? Yeah, 30 years ago. So you think I would know more about it, but I was, 12 at the time? I wasn't really thinking about what was going on. I knew that communism was falling, but I didn't know much more other than I knew about the Berlin Wall. This game taught me so much more than that, and I want to go read more because 1989 was such a fascinating year in history. And as a kid, I'm thinking about pop culture and other things that's going on. In 1989, though, there are a lot of very important historical facts went on, and this game kind of pointed me towards that. I almost put Twilight Struggle in here, too, because that taught me a lot about the Cold War, but I ended up going with 1989 because it's a smaller subsection of the Cold War. So, 1989. All right, the People's Choice. Now, we're recording this show way earlier than we normally do, so the People's Choice may be different than what's up on the website. But this is what we got now. Number 10, World's Fair 1893. That's really interesting. I didn't expect that to be on the list, but it's a good game, and I guess you want to learn about the World's Fair. Number 9, Eldritch Horror, which I believe would probably be the same reason I said. 8, Lisboa. What's Lisboa about?
I don't know. It's blue.
Yes, thanks. I'm going to pull it up real quick and see. Lisboa. There's an earthquake of 1755. The reconstruction of Lisboa after the Great Earthquake of 1755. Well, there you go. That's cool. Not that there's an earthquake, but to learn about it.
Yes.
Number 7, 1960, The Making of the President. Number 6, Sagrada. I guess people want to go learn more about stained glass windows.
It's a craft project.
5, Viticulture, wanting to learn more about making wine. 4, Terraforming Mars. Is the stuff in
I
this?
considered Terraforming Mars, yeah.
I wondered about this too, because it did get me a little bit more interested in that. Like, can we actually do some of the stuff that this game says? Number 3, Freedom, the Underground Railroad. Number 2, Wingspan. And number 1, Twilight Struggle. So it looks like most people didn't pick pop culture stuff like I did. And arts and literature.
That is true.
But that's kind of what I thought of. I was just making a list of where the game came first and pushed me towards something else.
Yes.
Well, I hope you guys found this list interesting. It was fun for us to do. We'll be back in 2 weeks, but there's still a podcast in a week, and that Mandy and Suzanne will be back. So come back in a week and listen to that.
Indeed.
Don't forget we need questions. Don't forget you still have time to come to Dice Tower Con. But for now, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 605, was recorded on April 29th, 2019. Mandy and Suzanne join you next week, and in 2 weeks, D-Day has arrived as we present our top 10 games that start with the letter D. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. If a catastrophic event has become more than you can handle, find out how we can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Mandy, Suzanne, and Eric, with assistance from Rob Searing and Roy Kennedy. Our theme park, celebrating a certain purple dinosaur, provided by Barney Kingdom. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower network, including Board with Video Games, Meeple Overboard, Solosaurus, Flip Flory's Super Saturday Board Game Serial, Every Night is Game Night, Our Turn, Board Game Blitz, and Dice Tower Tonight. Find out more at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. We could organize like a bird watching expedition at one of our conventions if you want.
So when I was a kid, my dad made us go to the Audubon State Park in Pennsylvania, and we went and looked at birds. I have fulfilled my bird watching quota for my lifetime. The end.
I just want to see more nests.